Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, members, and welcome to our Society's Christmas Picks online tasting or online event here tonight. My name is Gil, and I'm joined by not one but two of my tastings colleagues. We've got Ewan, who's just come on screen. So, hello, Ewan.
Good evening.
We've also got Jim, who I'm just going to see if we can get the video started there for you, Jim. So there's a bonus, perhaps, of three of us this evening for the next hour or so to discuss some of our favourite wines for Christmas. So, members, you might tell this is going to be very much the Christmas central. Not only is it this time of year, but we're sporting some rather lovely Christmas jumpers. You and I think I can see you moving for your light switch, or were you not? Yes, you were.
Well, yeah, it's all going. It's all going. There we go.
Oh, that's
Switch that off now because it should go with a warning that this program may contain flashing
actually,
images.
that's true. That's true.
Mm.
We'll add that to the recording. But yeah, that's the way we mean to continue this tasting. Is that this event's going to continue in that sort of vein? But members, what I asked you and Jim, and indeed myself, what I wanted us to do here is just choose our favourite party pick. So we've each selected our favourite go-to wine for when we're entertaining or being entertained. A wine that is around the £10 or under. Rather fortuitously, we've all actually picked a very different style of wine. So we've gone for a white, rosé, and a red across the three. And completely by chance, this wasn't sort of planned, but we've done well there. But then we also have selected our favourite kind of splash out wine, our treat wine, our special wine, if you will, possibly with a nod to Christmas Day. But just, if you can't treat yourself at Christmas, when can you? So we've got a wine there from each of us that's somewhere between the 20 to £30 bracket as well. One white and two red. So we'll take it in turns. It's not a sense of a bit of a competitive edge. Although, of course, I'd love you to pick my wines, but there won't be a poll at the end of this. These are just our personal favourites among many, and no doubt, Jim, you and will discuss many wines beyond these six, I'm sure. But as always, members, we'd love to hear from you. I can see a few mentions have popped up on the chat already. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. If you have anything in your glass, joining us as well. Perhaps you've got one or more of our bottles to taste alongside us. If you have, we'd love to know what you think of the wines. Also, we're quite nosy a little bit, dare I say. We'd love to know if you have a particular favourite party pick, a wine that you love to entertain with, or maybe you've got a tradition for the Christmas dinner for the 25th. You always go for one particular region or style, or maybe you're mixing it up this year. I can start that off. I always love a Christmas day. Started with a low alcohol German Riesling, depending on the number of us that are there. Typically, it will be a Magnum, but around that 7 to 9% with a slight bit of sweetness. I love that as a kind of the starting wine for the day. I won't say exactly when it is, but it's typically around noon. But guys, I don't know if you have any. Maybe we can bring those in throughout the course of the evening.
Yeah, well, I can be unashamedly my own version of Bucks Fizz in that
Yeah.
right earlier you're talking about low alcohol as well. I'll start off with my orange juice combined with the Portuguese sparkler, the Hortas,
Oh,
which
lovely.
comes in at a reasonably low percentage, but it gives just a little bit of edge. I like my palate to be woken up first thing on Christmas Day, and a little bit of orange juice and a bit of fizz does that, along with the roll mop herrings and croissant, which is our tradition
There
for
we go.
breakfast. Yeah.
Very nice. All right. Jim, do you have, I'm putting you on the spot
Yeah,
here. We've
I
not
I
discussed
tend to
this.
go similar vein, but I start a little bit more alcoholic. I'll go for full strength sparkling with
Okay.
the orange juice. So a little bit of one, a little bit of the other, and then I'll mix the two together to get the perfect blend. That starts everything right about 6 a.m. when the kids are up.
6 a.m.'s a lie-in, isn't
It is these days, yeah.
it? I love that. Right. Well, I take we've got, yeah, as we say, we've got six wines to wax lyrical about. So you and I think you're first up. Should we dive straight in?
I am, yes. Now, those of you who know me from tastings in person or indeed online will know that I'm unashamedly a tifoso of Italy wines. And I'm not disappointing this evening. I've taken two Italian wines for my choice. That was actually accidental, but when I was looking to have them both, but when I was looking, they just both leapt out at me from a flavour point and also out of the screen as I was searching the 1,500 wines that we currently have online. My first wine, a white, is from an appellation that's little known. It's called Gambellara, which is a DOC in Italy. It's in Veneto. So if you go to if you hit Verona in the north of Italy and go east a little bit towards Soave, and then from Soave head about 5 miles northeast, and you get to the town, or the small town, large village of Gambellara. It's a cooperative, this particular one, the Cantina de Gambellara. It was established in 1947, although it was established on the foundation of a previous cooperative, which was called the Monopolio de Gambellara, which was founded in 1920. So it is, in fact, the oldest wine cooperative in the Vicenza province. And then in 2015, they merged with the Cantini of Colli Vicentini, which made them a very large cooperative, but nonetheless still very quality focused. They've currently got about 2,700 hectares of vines. Multiply that by about 2.5, and you get to the amount of hectares, amount of acres rather. And there's over 1,100 wine growers. I think at the moment in the cooperative, 1,157. So everybody's got a relatively small plots of maybe 2, 3, 4 hectares. They're growing the grapes. So individually, they wouldn't necessarily make sense to make wine, but coming together as a cooperative, it definitely does. So this company, the two cooperatives joined together in 2015. They call themselves Vitevis, which is all to do with the vines. It's the winemaker across the piece is a guy called Alberto Marchisio, very talented guy, responsible for the winemaking across the piece. That is to say, they do still wines, they do semi-sparkling or frizzante, and fully sparkling or spumante as well, across 5 or 6 appellations. But this is the home appellation, the Gambellara DOC. The vineyards are situated all around the village. I think we might have a picture of the winery and the village itself, which might illustrate a little bit the geography of this place. As I said, northeast of Soave, in the foothills of the Lessini Mountains, between 250 and 500 meters above sea level. And there you can see the large cooperative there, the yards and the wineries and the tanks. And in the background, you can see the Lessini Mountains. And also on the left, you can see that sort of peak in the middle on the left, which is actually an extinct volcano, the Calvarini volcano. And that gives to some black basalt soils, which really gives a mineral edge and a really bright edge to the fruit of all these wines. So for me, this is 100% Garganega. Very timely switch of photograph there. Thank you, Gil. 100% Garganega, which is the Soave grape. And they're grown in this particular instance, rather than just being grown on regimented rows of vines, they're grown on what they call the Pergola Veronese, or the Veronese pergola. As you might imagine, that is the direct translation. A little bit like Vigno Verde, if any of you have been there, you've got the vines actually growing above the heads of the people. In the next picture, I think we can see them doing a bit of harvesting. There we go, because you can see it's not the back-breaking work that you might get in other vines, low-lying vines. They're actually quite high, and they're trained on these trellises, so make it a lot easier to pick. But Garganega is the Soave grape. It's a very classy grape, actually. If the workhorse of this area is the Trebbiano, then the class act is the Garganega. Here we see a few facts about it. It is bone dry, as those of you who have tasted it. If you haven't tasted it yet, please do. 100% Garganega. We're drinking it now. I like the way you say now to 2026. So that means you've only got 17 days to drink. No, it's not true. And it'll last all the way through next year as well. The brightness and the acidity is very characteristic of this particular wine. It's really, for £9.95. I think it packs a lot of complexity in there. You've got, even on the nose, got some lovely sort of citrus zest kind of things going on, but on the palate, there's all sorts going on there. For me, you've got a bit of grapefruit, a bit of pineapple, some pear, so almost some cooking apple peel as well. So there's a sharp sort of edge, which just gives it that little bit of extra excitement as well. So for me, it's a great party wine, fantastic aperitif, they suggest food-wise, they suggest light canapes or freshwater fish, shellfish, risottos, creamed vegetables, that sort of thing. The sort of thing that would make a good starter or a good accompaniment. So great on its own, great with canapes, great with the first course. Something you can take from the armchair to the dining room table. So for me, it's a great it's a great wine for me at under £10. I think it really hits the spot. Don't know what
Yeah,
guys.
I can't disagree with that. Jim, what do you?
No, I think I have to agree. It's a great way to kick off the evening. There's a beautiful minerality to it on the end, that kind of salty touch, which as you say, it would work fantastically well with a whole heap of different foods. But that salinity just keeps you wanting more. I keep just sort of wanting to go back to it and have a little bit more. And I think it's just a very well made wine, isn't it?
I think that's the thing for me anyway. With when I think of a party wine, and we kind of call it that, but when I think of a really great wine at £10 or under, it's a wine that can work with so many different dishes, but equally will be perfectly fine without anything. Just the wine on its own. And you're catering for so many different flavors on plates and so many different palates. You need a wine that's got a lot of character to it, but equally a nice sort of freshness and an elegance and attractiveness to the wine, as this states. But it really does have that, and that salinity, as you both have mentioned, really crisp, really fresh. I can see this going with so many different little bite-sized dishes, an array of things on the plate. A cracking way to start.
Yeah. Thank you. Could you unshare your screen, Gil? We had you talking your wonderful face, so we couldn't see it while you were talking. There we go.
That was a good thing, probably.
Probably a good thing. Yeah. So that's the bottle. It's quite classy as a sort of label as well. I think it's just sort of relatively understated, but just looking on the back label gives. Oh, there's even a QR code. You can even get all your information from their website, just like I did, on the back of the label.
Brilliant. Right. I hadn't realised that when I'm sharing the screen, you can't see me. I should share it more often, shouldn't I? That's good to know.
Your words.
But yep, I'm just saying it before anyone else does. Second wine in then.
Second wine. Right. So I have gone for, don't know if you can see that, we got the Duo de Plage. And if you have joined me for any of the lunches, dinners in Stevenage, you'll know that I'm a big fan of rosé. I think it's an incredibly versatile category. It's really food friendly. And the Duo de Plage is probably, if I had a house wine, this is it. It's by the bottle, but also we do stock it by the bag-in-box. And that has been a game changer. There is always one in the fridge. Year in, year out, it doesn't matter what time of year, there's always something open. And it's just a lovely way to access it at all hours. So this one in particular is from the Languedoc-Roussillon, so we're from the Pays-d'Oc, and it is a blend. Oh, there we go, beautiful map down in the south of France. It's a very kind of classic great mix of mostly Cinsault and with a little bit of Grenache in there. So your Cinsault is giving that floral elegance, and the Grenache is just adding a touch of sort of that strawberry sweetness. Very similar to the Gambellara. It's a co-op, so a cooperative, and the whole business was set up with the premise of targeting the export market. So very geared towards a sort of a British-centric palate. We want attractive wines. We want wines that are easy to drink. We're also one of the biggest wine markets in the world, and we have a very diverse range of wines available. So they have to make sure that every wine that they put out is tip-top quality. And I think it shows through there. There's a little touch of residual sugar in here, but it's balanced beautifully by a lovely fresh acidity. I mean, on the nose, it's all about that kind of juicy strawberry fruit flavors you get from the Grenache. This, as I say, the florality, there's a little touch of minerality to it. The palate's nicely rounded. It's not too cloying. There's enough sweetness to carry the fruit flavors through, but you're left with a beautiful fresh acidity that kind of cuts through everything. And very similar to the Gambellara, it just leaves you wanting more. And as I touched on, it's incredibly versatile, so food friendly. You can look at anything from pizza to shellfish to fish and chips to salads to, if you can make it, you can drink it with it. So yeah, that's why I went for the Duo de Plage, and it's $7.95 for a bottle. It's a no-brainer for me, absolutely.
Yeah, I think value for money. Change from an £8 if there was an £8 note, you'd get change from it. Tremendous year in year out. The consistency with this wine, and I'm thrilled actually that we've got a rosé in here because, like you, I think I love rosé, and I'm growing to love rosé more and more every year. I have to say, and I think the quality level across all producers, they're across wine regions across the globe, the quality level of rosé is going from strength to strength. And producers are sort of singling out vines and vineyards specifically for rosé production, which wasn't always necessarily the case back in the day. So I love the fact that we're showcasing this. It's not just for summer, um, and we often overlook rosé. We think of white wines, we think of red. If we're trying to pair with any foods, we kind of bypass rosé, which can sometimes be the perfect middle ground between both. You get that
It
freshness,
is.
that
It
elegance,
is.
as you've mentioned, of a white wine, but there's a little bit extra something that you get from a little bit of time on its skins to give you the color. It just brings an extra depth and character and structure, I find, and this rosé has it.
What I'm finding is it's quite for a wine that's under £8. There's still quite a finish on it. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not a concentrated finish, but it's still quite long. And I think that for me that is the sign of a quality wine. This of course is one of a trio of wines that we get from this winemaker. We have the Duo de Mer, which is the Sauvignon Viognier white, which I could have quite easily included as my party white. And there's also the Duo du Midi, which is the red. Another red blend. So they're cracking value at under £8. If you just got friends around and you want to save the special stuff for yourself later, they wouldn't be disappointed by these at all.
wow. Excellent. I'm a little bit nervous, I have to say, after such a strong opening from you both. I know I said that there's no competitiveness, but there's always a little bit, isn't there? But I mentioned as well just before I sort of talk about my wine, and we fortuitously went. Thanks for that distraction, Ewan. Fortuitously went, white rosé red, but I was always going to pick a red, regardless. I think of what you both selected, and I had this. There were a couple, so I might mention another that almost made the cut. But my wine, I'll get the bottle up here. Hopefully, you can see it. The Familia Pacheco. This is the Organic Monastrell 2024 vintage. We're in southeastern Spain, in the region of Jumilla. And I just love the wines. A bit like you, Ewan, with your sort of love of Italy, which came as no surprise when you selected two fantastic wines from that country. I've got a big sort of fascination and interest and love for the wines of Spain and Portugal, so perhaps not a surprise that my two come from those two nations. But I really am quite excited by what's happening in Spain over the last few years, but in particular, the last few decades, but the last 5 to 10 in particular. We're seeing out the quality level of our more established regions like Rioja, Ribera del Duero, your Rioja Baixas for white wines are going, continuing to gain and to go strength to strength there. But it's the other regions outside, the slightly lesser known, that I'm really kind of honing in on. I'm finding some beautiful examples and expressions of wines there from indigenous varieties as well as those more well known. And so this particular wine, you both have featured cooperatives, but this is a family run winery. Elena Pacheco heads up the estate alongside her mother, her sisters, and indeed the fourth generation, her kids as well. So it's a real family run estate. They're seen as one of the best producers in Jumilla. What I'll do is I'll try and talk and share screen at the same time, which is always a very nerve-wracking moment when I try and do this. Let's see if it works. I'll bring up the map first of all. As I say, we're in the southeastern corner of Spain, so hopefully you can see that, guys. But we're in the region of Murcia. So I'll just say a little bit about this particular area before I sort of talk a bit about the wine. But we can see here, hopefully you can see, we've got these three regions. I'll bring my cursor over. So we have this larger area here, number 56. This is a region called Bulas. We've then got in 58, just up here in the very northeast, we've got the region of Yecla. And then it's kind of sandwiched in between the two. We've got number 57, which is the region of Jumilla. So we're somewhere kind of in the middle. And it's the oldest established wine region in this region of the three. It was established in 1966, so not particularly old by a lot of European or indeed anywhere in the world sort of standards. But for this area, that demarcated zone was that they were the very first in 66. And it's considered to be the area where you find the best quality, but also the most quantity as well, interestingly enough. And members, perhaps, or perhaps you both have spent some time holidaying down here. I don't think Benidorm and Costa Branca is too far away. So you might holiday down here for the great beaches, but you'll also very much be aware that it's warm, it's dry, it's sunny, and that extends into this region of Murcia. It is quite a harsh condition and climate here. It's continental, and what I mean by that is it gets incredibly hot in the summer. Temperatures of 40 degrees are not unseen, not unheard of. It's very dry, very, as I say, very arid, very warm, and you don't get a great deal of moisture in this region, generally speaking. But what we find with Jumilla is one saving grace is there's lots of lime in the soils, and that kind of helps lock in a bit of moisture. I'm not going to get too technical into this only because I don't know much more about it than that, but it does lock in a lot of the moisture, which is crucial for an area that does see such low rainfall. But also across all three of these regions, that grape variety of Monastrell is the most important varietal. It's about 80% of all vines planted, certainly in Crimea, but I think across all three areas. And that's largely, for no surprise, it's a grape variety that can withstand these conditions. It's quite drought resistant. It's a very hardy grape variety, thick skin, so it can withstand this hot, this dry climate that we have here. But even though it can withstand it, what we find is vines are planted very much in these kind of bush vines. I've got a picture here that might kind of highlight what I mean. Let me see if I can bring that up. But we're looking at low density, low vine density. We don't want the grapes to be fighting for the tiny amounts of water that we get here. So hopefully, again, you can see these bush vines on really dry, stony soils that we have here. But what the region's known for is their full-bodied Monastrell. So full-bodied, high alcohol, spicy, rich wines, perfect for these cooler months and this cooler part of the year. But what Elena Pacheco, if we go back to the producer here, what she does is she's always got to focus her attention on a freshness and elegance to her wines. She's got 17 hectares under vine. They're all at altitude as well, so this area is mainly known for its flat plains and its wide valleys, but it does have a little bit of a mountain range that cuts through from the coast to that central, what's it, the Meseta? That sort of central plateau of Spain. So we do have some altitude, and that's definitely where Elena's vines are planted. And so with the wine, both I've seen you taste this, it's hopefully got that freshness. There's a lift and acidity, a clean character to the wine alongside that quite intense fruit. And it does have some tannin. And of course, going from the rosé to this red, those tannins might show themselves a little bit more than they ordinarily do or will do. But I love this wine for its intensity, its flavor, but also that freshness on the finish. And I don't know about you both, but I find it harder to find a red wine at that £10 or under that's of this sort of quality than I do a white wine or a rosé. So when I find a red like this, I can't stop talking about it. Because for me, it's that they're few and far between. And when you've got a producer here that's focused entirely on quality from all their range, and very much a family-run business, all organic, vegan, vegetarian friendly, it just ticks every box for me.
I think it's great. I mean, we had this wine I featured it in our Spanish tastings in London and Edinburgh in September, and I remember it then. It got a lot of attention. I think price-wise, obviously. But just on the nose, it's making me think of strawberry shoelaces, that sort of liquor, those long bits of licorice that you had to, because you've got that sort of savoury, salty kind of edge to it, that licoricey edge. But some really nice black and red fruits coming through. And on the palate, you mentioned the tannins, Gil, but they're there. Again, this is a wine that if you're having at a party, it's great because it's got everything. It's got acidity, it's got tannin, it's got those fruits, it's got the savoury edges. I mean, for under £10, we're talking a great complexity of all of these wines, to be honest. Yeah. But then again, it's a wine that you could take if you're not having starters, or if you're having richer starters, or you're having meaty canapes at your party or whatever. I'm thinking charcuterie or I don't know, sort of rich mushroom vol au vents and those sort of things. This is just absolutely fantastic with that. In fact, I'm getting really hungry just talking about it.
Yeah, I didn't have dinner yet. That was a bad choice, wasn't it? And I will point out actually as well that this is Monastrell, but it's probably a grape variety that's more famously known as Mourvèdre in France and a lot of the rest of the sort of wine producing countries of the world. It's also known, correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but in parts of Australia it's known as Mataro. So it does have several
It
synonyms,
is, yeah.
like so many varieties do. But one of the crucial things with this grape is it needs a warm climate. It's a late ripener. It does need that sun, and crucially, again, it's one of those varieties that can withstand the pressures that this region, in particular, but also many other regions, that with warming climates and warming conditions, there are these kind of issues that producers are having to and winemakers are having to think about more and more. What grape varieties am I needing to plant in these areas? But it's interesting, Ewan, you mentioned about the event in, I think it was September, wasn't it, where we were in Edinburgh. And I was talking to the importer of the wine at the time, sort of talking about the quality here and those stresses in terms of the warming climates in the region. And he cited the fact that these are bush vines and they're older bush vines. We're looking at 30 years old of minimum age, I think, here, is they've kind of seen everything, he was saying. So they've seen everything, they've handled everything before. And so they are currently, at least, handling those pressures better than other vineyards around them. And because of that, organic principles as well, the healthier soils. So that's something, I suppose, very positive in that respect, to follow those organic principles, and make sure you're planting correctly, but also as a nod to the quality of the winemaker and the skill of the whole team.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a beautiful, beautiful wine, and under a tenner, you can smell the Spanish sunshine in it. It's just ripe, it's juicy, it's everything that I love in Spanish reds. It's elegant, it's not overly overpowering, but it's deep. There's a lot going on there. And I think it's food friendly, it's versatile. Monastrell is just a wonderful variety to work with if you get it right. If I think with the older vines, they can handle it, and they can handle the fluctuations. When they're young, they can be a little bit more pernickety. You've got to treat them right. It's kind of like Pinot Noir in that front. It's they can be a real pain to play with in the vineyard. But when they're controlled, when they've calmed down a bit, they just give you such beautiful fruit to play with.
Yeah.
Considering this may be a competition, we're all being very complimentary about each other's wines.
I know. Too much.
Very nice
I don't
people.
like it. It's unnerving. We had this with didn't we? We did a buyers battle event a few months ago with three of our buyers, and they did the same. That was a competitive event, but they're all so complimentary. It was not what I expected it to be. But right, so that's it for our party wines. But as I think I mentioned there, before we jump straight in now to our specials and our treat wines, conscious as well that it's me jumping first into that. So a break from me waffling on. Are there any other wines that didn't quite make your list of one, that you would like to give a little shout out, a little nod to other wines?
It's true. From a party perspective, I think there was one. It's just a little bit over the £12 mark, but there's one I tasted from Alsace yesterday at our Alsace tasting that suddenly woke me up to that region again, which is a Pinot Blanc from Domaine Camille Brown, or Braun. I don't know how they would pronounce it in there, but it's really, really, really good, really lively, really lively. If you're able to push it up to 15, I'd go for an Italian one from the Alto Adige, but we're not, because even 12.95 is pushing it. But I think, and if you go to the wines of, for example, the Cave de Tourkheim, again a cooperative from Alsace. In fact, I think the cooperatives that the Wine Society deals with are inevitably fantastic value, and because they're a cooperative, the way they work is fantastic as well. I think that you could do worse than pick out all type in cooperative into our search engine on the Wine Society website and see what it comes up with, and you could do far worse than select some of those wines. I'm thinking things really Agli Valley down in Roussillon as well. Just simply the society's French red, and those sort of wines are just fantastic value for money.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think you could kind of pick any of the Society's own label wines and you'd be very, very happy in a party situation. But the one that kind of just lost out to me, and I'm sure there's probably no surprise from you guys, is the Don Zoilo, 15-year-old Pedro Jimenez. I mean, it's cheating a little bit. $9.95.
We've spoken about this.
We have spoken about
the brief. It's under a tenner. But it's
a half bottle. It's well over a tenner.
Well, there was no one ever specified a full bottle at a tenner. I'm stretching the rules a little bit. But it's beautifully decadent, it's rich, it's raisiny, it's just a glorious glass of wine. And so festive this time of year. Glass of that, chilled down slightly. It's rich, it's luscious, it's oh yeah, I'm quite thirsty now.
Yeah, no, I can't fault that. And yeah, if you're finishing the party with a, I don't know, the party's finished with a big bowl of ice cream. They would if you've got the Donzoyo there, I suppose, wouldn't they? And then you can
Oh
just
yeah, drizzle that all over it
have a
and then
glass
come back
and
for
drizzle a
more.
little bit on the ice cream too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Jim's competitive streak there when we're talking about choosing wines under £10 and slightly cheating. He's a bit like, reminds me of the Italian winemakers compared to the French winemakers, because the French winemakers, if it doesn't say it in the appellation rules, then obviously you can't do it. You have to fix the rule. Whereas if the Italians say it doesn't say it in the appellation rules, well, it's a free for all. We can do it then if it doesn't actually strictly mention it. So
they're onto something there.
They are, absolutely.
I like how this is all being said by the gentleman who moments ago, when asked if he had another wine for £10 or less, you went straight in at £12.95. That didn't pass me by. Right. Okay. So there we go. Actually, I will stay. I'm going to stay Spain for mine, but I love a good sparkling parties. You can't go wrong with a Society's Cava. I think the new Vintage 23, which has just landed. I know it's our colleague Matt's one of his favourites as well. In fact, the other little shout out to you, Matt. I told you I'd talk it up. It's a great wine. You can't go wrong with that as a sparkler. It's absolutely tremendous. And I think Cava more generally, the more of it. We need to drink more Cava. That's one of my big pushes for this year and into next.
I would add to that one. I mean, again, this is not to do with the party wine because it's taken us over the £10 strictly, but at £12.50, the brand new Society's Exhibition Cava Grand Reserva 2021 is an absolute steal. So I think Cava in itself is oft overlooked, as you said. It's a fantastic drink, and I think the two wine society offerings, both from Sumarocca, but different vintages and slightly different aging, are just absolutely classy.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Right. I think it's time for our treat wines.
Woo!
You've both gone for red, which means that I kick things off with my white. And as I mentioned at the start, I'm staying in the Iberian Peninsula here, but we started with my red. We're in the southeastern corner of Spain. For my white, for my treat wine, my special wine, we've moved to the very northeast of Portugal and to the region of Douro in particular. And it's a region, as I said before, I really love the wines from Portugal, from Spain. There's a great deal of excitement. The quality levels are just going from strength to strength, complete upward trajectory. And this particular producer, so I'll show the bottle here. Hopefully you can see that. So Quinta de Pedra Alta. This is what I'll also do actually is just point to these little three. This sort of emblem up here. I'll reference that in a few moments' time, but. This is a producer that I've come to know sort of, I suppose, over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's fascinating. The quality of the wine, the consistency again here that you're getting is second to none. It's rivaling any other white wines and red wines. They do both. They also do port. The region Douro, of course, most famous for its fortified port wines. But what we've been seeing over the last few years, and certainly from the sort of 70s, 80s onwards, is a growth in what we call table wine, these unfortified wines. So I really wanted to show this wine, not just because it's from an area that we principally think of for fortifieds, but if we do think beyond those, and we think to table wine, we think red. So it's got that kind of underdog status, I suppose, as well, being the white wines of a region. That it's kind of the third style of wine you might think of, but the quality is just exceptional. So it's Quinta de Pedra Alta. This is their Branco Reserva. So it does see some oak fermentation and maturation. I'll talk a little bit more about that, and indeed the 3 grape varieties that play a role. But we saw from the map, and I might bring that back up again, is this region is really kind of, you can't quite see it. Hopefully you can. You see my cursor there? So we've got the Douro River, which gives the area its name, that runs right the way through. So it's a river that in Spain is known as the Duero. So I mentioned the Ribera del Duero. It's the same river that runs through from east to west, eventually sort of filtering out around Porto City into the North Atlantic. But it's really this river and its tributaries that kind of cuts through the area and gives it its striking geography, really. So here's a picture. We think of the area, we think of these terraced steep vineyards So this is from the Quinta itself, Quinta de Pedra Alta. So we can really see that this is all hand harvested. There's no mechanization here at all. And this is more of a wide lens shot of the valley of the Douro more broadly. So we can see these beautiful rolling hills. Again, these terraced, some a little flatter, some more of a gradient to them, and then that river system just meandering its way through. It's an area that we think of the region and we think of the town of Porto, but actually the area we can see there is far further inland, and it's cut into three sort of zones, I suppose. It's in particular when we're thinking of table wine. So you've got the Douro Superior. Bear with me, guys. I'm going to talk about these in a very random way. I'm not going to go from east to west or west to east, but there's method to my madness. So I will start though in the furthest inland, which is the Douro Superior. So that's the furthest east, close to the border of Spain. And this is a sort of an emerging sub-region. Very steep terraced vineyards here. And it's only got about 20% of available land, sort of available vineyard land in Douro is in this area. So it's an up and coming area of very high quality table wines. We've then got the Baixo Corgo, which is all the lower Corgo, which is another sub-region nearest to the city of Oporto. So we're over into the east of the west of the region. And here it's sort of best suited to table wines in many respects, so where a lot is coming from. It's a bit cooler. We've got slightly more Atlantic influence here, so it's cooler, it's a bit wetter than the other areas. It's a little bit more accessible as well. So we tend to find wines that are slightly higher quantity as well as the high quality. But then we finish the third region is in between both. It's the Cima Corgo. And this is the area where this particular wine comes from. It's where the most high-end vintage port and a growing number of table wines are coming from the Cima Corgo. It's the largest of the three regions. It accounts for about half of all total production. And that's where Pedra Alta are situated. So if I bring it back the bottle, because what I love is the region, this winery has a huge history. So it dates back to sort of 1761. And we know that because there are three big granite slabs that have been kind of implanted into the ground there. And that's what this symbol kind of represents. It's the only winery that's got three granite slabs, and they're dated at 1761, so we can date the region. We know the area. And the reason for it is the Marquis de Pombal, who was Prime Minister in the 1770s, 1780s, or 1770s, I think, as well. He recognized the quality of wines being produced here, the quality of the vineyards in this area, and he wanted to protect them. So in that 1761, he kind of demarcated the area by putting several of these stones that marked the quality regions, the quality vineyards. So the fact that this particular estate's got three and the only one to have that many is a nod to the quality that we find here. And so it's got a great history to it. The current owners actually bought it just before the harvest of 2018, so reasonably recently, and they've injected a huge amount of time, energy, money, and we see just the quality here is as I said before, unrivaled, really. I absolutely love the depth. It's one of those wines that I think I can continuously smell just as much as enjoy the taste of it. It's just got so much complexity, so much depth, so much richness. And again, when I was selecting my wine, regardless of what we have on the Christmas table, regardless of what the food is that we have, it's always packed with a load of flavor. There's always a lot of flavor on that dish and so on the plate. So you need a wine that's got a huge amount of flavor to match up to that. But also you need a wine that's got elegance and freshness. You need something with acidity to cut through everything and the richness of the dish. And I do think that this particular wine has all that in spades. I know you guys have tried this with me and before at various events, but it's their Reserva. So they have two tiers. They've got the Pedra, which is their unoaked, which they have in white and red. And then they've got their Reserva white and red as well, which is under the Pedra Branco or Pedra Tinto. And I'm just going to move, because shock horror, I didn't quite know too much about all three grape varieties. I'll just fully state that now. But the majority here is Viosinho, 82% is Viosinho, and then we've got 17% Guvero, and then 1% Donzelinho. And if I've completely butchered that, what I have, please don't.
I think you're talking rubbish. I think you're just reading from the Brazilian team sheet for the World Cup.
But well, there you go. But so everything's handpicked. Everything's picked early morning as well. So gently and early morning to retain the freshness as much as possible, to retain the acidities. And and then that juice is whole bunch pressed and drained off immediately. So we're not looking to gather too much or anything from the skins there. It's wild yeasts at a reasonably high temperature, about 20 degrees temperature there. But again, we're looking to maintain that primary fruit aroma and all those flavors and characteristics, but minimal handling throughout. And what I love is, and I've noted down here what all three bring to the table. The Viocino, that gives a lovely texture, length. It also brings us some pear, some nectarine flavors, those sorts of characteristics. Govero has a love kind of mid-palate weight to it. It's a bit more passion fruit, a little bit more tropical fruit notes coming through. And then the Donzelino adds a citrusy and a very bright, lively acidity in there, which matches all of. I think they work really well together as a blend. And as I say, it's fermented through to full dryness in a combination of new and old French oak. And then it's matured in its or sous lie, so on its lees for 11 months, which again gives it a lovely texture and a savoury characteristic to the wine. I think it's one of those that every time I go back to it, I get a different flavour. I get a different characteristic.
I think the oaking is so well done that you've just got there's just a sort of, it's almost like a light dusting of oak, which adds to the texture as well as to the flavors. When I'm tasting wines like this, and I know there's the savory edge to it, but if you just took it on its own, I think you're actually getting sort of slightly sour apples and custard. So you're getting a creaminess there, a little bit of vanilla, coming through, that custardy thing, but coming through from the oak. But then you're getting that sort of that real edge. Again, we talked about the edge of the Gambellara. There's a sort of green appley edge, which really lifts everything and brings all those flavors that you were talking about out there. Yeah. It's a fantastic drop of wine.
And I think that, we often talk about can 1% of a variety really make a difference. But all of that freshness that you talked about there on the finish is coming predominantly from that Donzelino. So that 1% splash just wakes everything up.
Yeah,
as well. But yeah,
it's lovely. It shouldn't be surprising if we haven't. I mean, I've heard of 2 of those 3 grapes, but it's not really surprising given that Portugal, outside of Italy, is the country with the most indigenous grape varieties. It's just an amazing cornucopia of experiences when you really get under the skin of Portuguese grape varieties. It's fantastic.
I think that's what I love about Portugal as well. Is there was that period where I think it was the 1980s where they joined the EU, and there was I can picture the conversations. Do we go international varieties? And there was a little bit of planting of your more well-known global planting varietals, Chardonnays and Sauvignon Blancs, Pinot Noirs, etc., and with relative success. But it was one of those sort of fairly quickly, collectively the winemakers and the grape growers were like, actually, no, we've got something really special here with our indigenous varieties in all of the different areas as well. So these grape varieties aren't seen across the country, and there'll be other varietals further south and central that aren't seen in the north. But I think that's something that really stands them out. And for us now as consumers, we are a little bit more adventurous, I think. And so we're going to countries like Portugal more because they've got those indigenous varieties. We're going to Greece a bit more because of the same reason. And the quality of the wine is sort of matching our interest in the growth in that. So, yeah, it's a country that I think, again, should be on more of our radars.
Yeah, and I think with the indigenous varieties as well, we're seeing it across the board everywhere. There's a huge drive for producers to really dial into what they were doing. They're kind of realizing that actually what they had grown before is way better suited to what the climate is doing right now, where the climate's going, instead of the international varieties. So yeah, I think Portugal's absolutely nailed it with this. I think I'm really happy you included this wine. It's beautiful. It's one of my favorite whites that we've tasted this year. It's that acidity just cuts through everything and it just brings everything back in as well. Beautiful.
What I will say, and I'm just you may have mentioned it, you're about to say it, Ewan. Just a comment here from Emma that took you by surprise, not what you expected from a Portuguese white. I think I'll need to drink the rest of the bottle to decide if I like it. Yeah, I think it's one of those that you just need to be sure that you like it. But I will say that we're tasting and talking about the 23 vintage, which has just before tonight's event sadly sold out. We've sold through that vintage. But I can say that the new vintage 24, which Freddie, our Portugal buyer, has sort of mentioned that whilst, yes, there's slight differences to it, the quality level is every bit as sky high. So I've got every confidence to recommend the 24. That is live and that is available. If our sort of conversation about this wine has whet the appetite, I'll send a link in the email as well. But yeah, sadly, this is I think the only wine from our range that this vintage at least has sold out. But the new one's there.
It's cracking, absolutely cracking selection.
Right. Well, I think we're on to our two reds now, and Jim, I think you're up.
Alrighty. Okay. So moving on to the reds. I have gone over to the United States. I've got a lovely Pinot Noir from Lemelson, and Lemelson is based in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. So if you're not overly familiar with Oregon, the Willamette Valley more or less runs right through the middle of the state. There you go. Perfect. So you're kind of looking at Portland south to Eugene, roughly in the middle of the state. The region itself is absolutely gorgeous. It's rolling hills, it's pine forests, interspersed with chunks of orchards, fruit farming. It's an absolutely magical place to drive through if you ever get the chance. And the producers there are just really lovely people. So this is from Lemelson. The chap there is Eric Lemelson. He, as happens quite often in the US, actually, he came to winemaking fairly late in his career. He started off as an environmental lawyer, and sort of the wine industry piqued his interest. But while he was studying, he actually decided to invest in a little bit of land in Oregon, more of as a possible retirement, a possible out. And initially it was with the fruit farm industry in mind, but he kind of got more and more hooked by the wine bug, and he started talking to producers in Oregon and some winemakers, and he was just getting more and more drawn into that industry, into that community. So he was talking to people about the best ways to make it, to grow it, how it all clicks into place, how it all works. So after a fair bit of study, early 90s, he actually realized that the land that he'd bought was perfectly placed, perfectly situated for high quality Pinot Noir. So we're looking at southeast facing slopes, volcanic soils, everything that in that part of the world makes a great wine. So he started planting in the mid 90s, 94, 95. And he's now covering 120 odd hectares. And I mean, you just showed the image there, Gil, of the winery. It's all state of the art. It's a stunning bit of architecture. And as you can imagine, with his environmental background, they don't do things by halves. Everything is done with the quality of the wine in mind, ensured by the looking after the land. So the winery itself is all gravity fed. Everything comes in at one level. They finish that process, it drops down to the next, and then down, and then down, and then it finishes off in the barrel room underneath. So it's all naturally temperature controlled. So they don't really need to use any sort of artificial heating, cooling. It's all just naturally done proper. Again, no chemicals are used. They're organic farming. They don't touch synthetics. Everything is about dialing into the healthy land, healthy vineyard, healthy soil. And I think, they've done a fantastic job as representatives of the state, of the grape variety. And so this is the Thea's selection cuvee, which is more or less their house cuvee, you could call it. They do a few different single vineyard sites across the Willamette AVA. So it kind of branches off depending on the hills. So this is using their 5 different estate vineyards. And it's essentially a breakdown of what Willamette Valley can do, what Lemelson can do in any given year. And it is just a beautifully combined, beautifully balanced drop of Pinot. So it's coming in at 13.5%, which for Oregon isn't too much. It's not too little. It's nicely juicy. It's nicely ripe, nicely spiced. It's got that, classic Oregon red currant, red berry flavors. And then there's that sort of subtle undertones of licorice, tea. It's almost like a salty finish to it as well. And in terms of food pairing, it's versatile. There's not a lot of overt strong tannins. The acidity is what balances it, it's what carries it through. So you've got all those different fruit flavors, and it just allows it to stand up to quite a lot. We served it the other week in Stevenage for our Thanksgiving dinner. So we did it with the full turkey, the potatoes. We did it with mash, all the sides, and it just worked so well across the board. Nothing overpowered. It just kind of enhanced the food. The food enhanced it, and for me, that's what makes a great wine. What makes a great pairing. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful wine. This one. Yeah. It's like almost like a floral lavender character as well.
But I get overwhelmingly, I get all the characteristics you're talking. There's a kind of an undercurrent of an earthiness in there. There's quite a savory kind of, I don't know, slightly not gamey, but there's a slight savory character. They're just sitting as an undercurrent. But I get lots of those, as you said, the red fruit, red currants in particular, cherry notes as well, a little bit of red plum. But it's that spice. It's just got a slight kind of a little sweet spice feel to it, which again, with everything that's going to be on that plate, perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's the spice for me that carries it through. I think Pinot Noir can be it can be overcooked, it can be underdone, but when there's got that spice, that touch of complexity there, it's what makes it stand out for me.
Yeah. Have you tried it there, Ewan? You got the glass?
Yeah, I think for me there's I'm not the world's biggest Pinot fan, but I do like Oregon Pinot. It might have something to do with the price and being Scottish. I don't know, but but I think this one really hits the spot. We've been selling this. I remember when we started selling this at the Wine Society. I've been here that long, and Eric came over and he's come to some of our US tastings in the past, and it's just a fantastic draw. It's got all that balance. The things that Jim was talking about there, the slight licorice note, the saltiness, the earthiness, the red currant, that characteristic red currant fruit of Oregon Pinot, and it really, for me, it really works. And it's no coincidence that in this cooler climate area, there's quite a few Burgundian houses that have come over and sort of implanted some roots there. I'm thinking of Domaine Drouin, I'm thinking of Jean Nicolas, those sort of guys who are coming over. They found that the terroir is very, very similar to what they've got back at home, and there's an awful lot of space there, but probably a little bit more space than there is in Burgundy to start making some fantastic Pinot, and not just Pinot, but Chardonnay as well, and all the cool climate grapes. But it's fantastic.
Agreed. I've seen you've responded there, Jim. It's all right.
It's fine. Yeah. We all have our palates. It's a fair game.
Well, you mentioned it there as well, Ewan. That's a big sign of quality there when you've got winemakers from firmly established Pinot and Chardonnay kind of royalty recognizing something here and going, okay, we're going to buy up some space there and make wines in a very different manner. It's not that they're making wines to be Burgundian-esque. They are, unmistakably Oregon in their style. But if you are a lover of Pinot Noir, as many of our members tonight, I'm sure will be, then Oregon is certainly somewhere to focus a little bit of time on. And you can get wines that very much match your Burgundian price points, but I think at this wine, at this price, what are we, £27 a bottle? I think
yeah, right? 27.
Yeah, you get so much in the glass for this. It's a real treat yourself wine.
Yeah. Interesting. Got a question from Andrew here. It says, how does Oregon Pinot compare with Canadian or the Okanagan Valley Pinots? Good question. I mean, I think Okanagan Valley, you're even cooler. You're a little bit more inland, so it's probably more continental in that way. You're 3 Okanagan Valley, Kelowna, around there. You're 3.5, 4 hours from the coast. So actually, funnily enough, although it's further north and it should be cooler because you're a little bit more continental, you get slightly warmer summers. No, I think it compares very well. I think Okanagan Valley, I haven't had one for 3-4 years now, but it compares very well. I think there's maybe a little bit more austerity in the Okanagan just because of the cooler nights that you get there being north, but a lot more acidity as well. But not dissimilar. Not dissimilar.
No, exactly. I think it's not too dissimilar. You tend to get a little bit more sort of intensity and richness in Okanagan because of that sort of differentiation between hot and cold, day and night. And that's what, yeah. So yeah, I think otherwise fairly similar-ish.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. Harder to find though, as you've alluded to. The wines of Okanagan Valley are even harder to find than those from Niagara Peninsula and across the East Coast.
I had friends who emigrated from Hertfordshire, from Hitchin, in fact, here next door to Stevenage, some 14 years ago, to Kelowna in the Okanagan Valley. I'm yet to visit them, but they keep on going on wine tastings in the area, and they keep on telling me how good the wines are. So I think next bigger holiday needs to be over there.
Well, bring some back for us as well when you go.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely, always.
But Ewan, I'm seeing the time here. It's a perfect moment for us to ask you to talk about your Italian red.
Well, let's do that. So the last wine of the evening, wine number 6, is the biggest wine of all of them. So it's right that it should come in this order. It's called Scacciadiavoli. I just love the name. I just love saying Scacciadiavoli, let alone drinking the stuff. Scacciadiavoli means chasing away the devil in Italian, or the devils. And it dates back to a local exorcism episode in the area in Umbria in the 14th century. And the story goes that there was a young woman possessed by the devil to whom the exorcist made her drink the Sagrantino, the wine made from the local Sagrantino grape, and succeeded in driving away the demon. I don't know what other demons he might have added, depending on how much wine she drank. But that's where the name comes from in this area. The Scacciadiavoli estate itself has its roots in 1884 is when it was founded by the Italian royalty, the Prince of Piombino, Ugo Boncompagni Ludovisi was his name, and he invested in buying 150 hectares of land to plant grapes in between, in a little triangle. Because if you look at that map there, if you bring that map back up, Gil, you can see that it's absolutely smack bang in the center of Italy. We're big time in the center of Italy. There you go, slap bang there, Scacciadiavoli. Not just north of Rome. It's kind of Umbria. It's south of Florence and Siena. It's north of Rome. Really, really in the middle there. And again, you can't really say that the middle of Italy is continental because it's maybe too narrow for that. But there's a lot of warmth there. But there's a lot of altitude as well. You're up in the hills, and it's perfect wine growing country. When he planted these vines, they were Guyot trained, i.e. they were trained along wires and trellises and the like, which is what you might expect actually nowadays. All vines you'll see are generally, other than the bush vines or the trellis vines that we saw in the Pergola Veronese, they're along wires linked between posts. But in this area, until then, they used a system called vite maritata, which means married vines, where they planted vines next to trees. Not only did that help because the vines could reach out and wrap themselves around the trees and support themselves that way, but also it helped with biodiversity. The trees may be polyculture because the trees may also be fruit bearing, etc. So it was. But he was the first to go into in Italy, or certainly in this part of Italy, in Umbria, to go into the Guyot method. The estate has remained intact over the decades that it's been in existence, nearly 150 years now. It's had 3 owners: the Boncompagni, who was the prince himself, then Rolandi Ricci, and then the Pambuffetti family took over in 1954, and we're now on the 4th generation of the Pambuffettis looking after those. Those of you who've been to our Italian tastings this year in London and Lewis, and last year in London and Glasgow, will have met Jacopo Pambuffetti, the winemaker, the 4th generation winemaker. He now has children as well, so doubtless they will be coming along later.
I'll bring the picture back up there for you, Ewan. Sorry.
Yeah, that's all right. No worries. Yes, so there you are. So Jacopo is the 3rd one from the left, and he's no, absolutely great guy, great family. And you see the cellars there. We're talking oak here. We're talking a big wine overall. I don't know, but I don't know how many of you had the chance to taste it already. But this comes from the Sagrantino grape. It's which is a wild boy grape of Italy. It's so huge. Relatively late harvested, considering that we're in Italy and it's quite warm. You're talking generally they will harvest mid October. That's you get the high alcohols there. Here we're talking 14.5%, but it has been known to be at 15%. It's an absolutely beautiful wine. It's vinified in 10,000 litre oak vats, old French oak vats, at 30 degrees for 3 to 4 weeks. And then it's aged in French barrels and other large vats for at least 18 months. So it really, they're not necessarily new. In fact, the vats certainly aren't. They're old vats, so they don't impart a lot of oak flavour. But it just for 18 months really, I was going to say it really rounds it off. But when you're tasting this wine, is already smelling it, you're getting loads of red and black fruit, balsamic vinegar kind of aromas coming up. Mocha, spiciness, all of that sort of and then when you actually drink it, it really does pack a punch.
Yeah, and there's something slightly herbal in there as well. Herbal rather than herbaceous. It's not sort of green.
No, but you're getting those tannins, really big tannins. You're getting balanced by some fantastic acidity.
Yeah,
and then those black and red fruits coming through. I mean, my mouth is slightly drying out now as we're speaking. But for me, this is a wine. It's not a party wine. It's not a wine for just sipping and chatting with. It's a wine for sitting down at the table and getting real serious grub in front of you. So for me, at Christmas, I'm always going for, you mentioned it earlier, Gil, there's shed loads of flavors going on the Christmas table. The turkey is the least of them. But when you've got the sprouts, you've got the gravy, you've got the cranberry sauce, you've got, you've got the red cabbage, you've got all sorts of things going on, which could knock any wines for six. But this one is one of those huge wines. And I always think you need a huge wine at the dining room table at Christmas, whether it be a Gran Reserva Rioja, whether it be a big Zinfandel from California, all of those wines that really, really act as a fantastic foil to all those flavors. And for me, this is one of my go-to wines in that kind of situation. A big, rich dinner demands a big, rich, acidic, tannic wine. And for me, this is it. You've got those dark cherry flavors. You've got the mocha that I was saying. It's built to age well as well. If you don't like the tannins so much and you think it's a little bit too much, then decant it. Just let the tannins soften a little bit. Do some aging. It pairs really well with game. It pairs really well with any roast meats, and it's brilliant with an aged hard cheese as well. So an old Parmesan or an aged Pecorino or a Mimolette from France, or even a really old aged cheddar or Gouda goes absolutely fantastic. There's so much complexity there. Some of you guys will be tasting it. If you don't, please put it in your Christmas basket, because for me, it's got absolutely everything. You'll guess I like the wine.
I couldn't.
It does come through.
I couldn't tell at all. There's been a question. Sorry, before Jim, you said a bit about what you think of the wine as well. There's been a question in here. How does it compare to the Montefalco Rosso, which is a good wine?
Yeah, so the Montefalco Rosso, another wine from these guys at Scacciadiavoli, all this bigness that I've been talking about and the largesse of everything, whether it be tannins, is tempered a little bit by the addition of Sangiovese. So you're basically softening it. If you want to work your way towards Sagrantino, then start off with Montefalco Rosso, because it gives you an idea of the character, but it still gives you there's a familiarity as well because of the other red grapes involved, in particular Sangiovese. And then you can take it as your first step towards the real thing. But it's great. Thankfully it's also cheaper, and it does work. It's maybe a little bit more versatile because it's slightly softer as well, so it'll go with a lot more things.
Excellent, Jim. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to the Pedra you picked up earlier. I quite happily just keep smelling that. There's always something new. And when you mentioned the braised red cabbage, now I could see that immediately. That's that allspice hit, and I absolutely love that. I think on the nose, there's just so much going on there, but it's a big boy. It's a big wine.
Yeah, you were
Um,
talking earlier about sustainability with your other ones in Oregon and the like. These guys at Scacciadiavoli, some of you will know that the Wine Society every year gives funding to some of our growers. I think last year it was 14 growers that we gave funding to, a share of 65,000-70,000 pounds towards sustainability and environmentally sound projects. These guys at Scacciadiavoli, they're actually looking at the possibility of going back to the vite maritata that I was talking about. So the vines married with the trees, not only for the trellising, but just to encourage biodiversity and see whether the competition between the vine and the tree actually improves the quality of the wine. So there's a lot, there's a lot going on, not only flavor wise, but also environmentally with these guys. They really do take their winemaking and their care of the planet and the care of the soil and the biodiversity around very, very seriously indeed. It's going to be, they planted 35 trees and 35 Trebbiano, so white, for the 35 Trebbiano Spoletino vines, to see how it improves the resilience of the vines, the biodiversity, as I mentioned, and the wine quality. So watch this space as far as that's concerned.